comes through. Fresh start in the morning blue. Hey, now blue sky shining down. Let your feet don't touch the ground. Laugh it off, let the good times stay. Oh yeah, it's a blue sky day. Oh, coffee, steam, and a smile breaks free. Simple joys are enough for me. Stones roll out, but I don't mind. Sun's still waiting on the other side. Turn it up, feel the sound. Good vibrations all around. Hey, now blue sky shining down. Lift your feet, don't touch the ground. Laugh it off, let the good times stay. Oh yeah, it's a blue sky day. No heavy weight, no looking back. Just open roads and a steady track. Hands in the air, feel the sway. Let the light carry us away. Hey, now blue sky shining down. Spin around, let the music play loud. Every color's here to stay. Oh yeah, it's a blue sky day. Oh, wake up, sunlight tapping on the door. Feels like I've been here all before. Radio humming, the world feels right. Every little thing's in tune tonight. Shadows fade, the truth comes through. Fresh start in the morning blue. Hey now, blue sky shining down. Lift your feet, don't touch the ground. Laugh it off, let the good times stay. Oh yeah, it's a blue sky day.
Wow, good morning. Hey, welcome to the Conservative Cat Show. My mic was down. I was like, wait a second, what's going on here? My microphone was down. It's a Monday morning, of course. 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. Central Time. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, folks. We've got a lot of heavy lifting today. I'm really excited to see you, but some of these, news cycles, they just get heavy. This weekend was a terrible weekend for news. There was this death toll. It's continuing to climb. This is in Sydney, Australia. There was a terror attack. And of course, you've got the conspiracy theorists out there saying, oh, well, these people, you can clearly see these are Muslim terrorists. Okay. And that this was motivated, religiously motivated, politically or racially motivated. This was a Jewish kind of get together for Hanukkah. So the shooters have been identified as a father-son duo, and I'm going to bring you the latest death toll here. It's like just makes me sick to my stomach, this story. This also makes me sick to my stomach. Like I said, not a good weekend for news. On Friday, This was signed the Illinois assisted suicide bill that passed at 2 a.m., if you remember, in the dead of night on All Hallows Eve. Doctors say that this is dangerous, and there was a lot of opposition here. I didn't think he was going to sign it, Governor J.B. Pritzker. I thought he was hesitant for political reasons, obviously. I thought that him running in 2026, this was too controversial of a bill to sign, him potentially making a run in 2028. Illinois joins like 6 other states, maybe. There's only a handful of states that have done this. And it's not a popular thing, assisted suicide, physician-assisted suicide. So we're going to get into it. Plus, this has got your social media feed by storm. Not a good story again this weekend. Hollywood director Rob Reiner and his wife were found dead at their home with injuries consistent with knife wounds. So stabbed. There's not a lot coming out about this. Now, that leads me to believe some of the rumors here. This is complete rumor, completely not true. This has not been fact checked. This has not been, said. The police have not said this, that his son was troubled. Okay. And it leads me to believe that that's a possibility. I'm using context clues here. Why this is so hush hush. It's a very inadequate reporting on this. So they were found dead at their home with knife wounds. So I'm assuming a stabbing, right? It's being investigated as a homicide. I'm going to give you the latest details I have on that. Like I said, not very many, which leads me to believe that those rumors about the son might be true. That he was troubled, to try to protect the family. They're kind of concealing details here. But we'll have to see. And I'm going to give you those updates as I find them. So smash that like button. Good morning, Cat and Chat. As always, you can be in the chat. Folks, I just want to say a big thank you to the 1,000 subscribers. This has been something that I have been pushing towards since June. That is so huge for me, and I love you guys. I end the show every single day saying I love you, bye-bye. And I mean that when I say I love you guys. You're my brothers and sisters in Christ, and this is a show that's dedicated to the truth and to faith and to the news. And we're going to jump into the news, but as always, you can support the program by visiting patriotpumpenergy.com, getting your bottle today. This is our premium pre-workout. It's got caffeine, creatine, and L-citrulline. I know that the Rumbler, I love your profile, by the way. Is that your cat? Send it in the chat. Is that your cat? I have 3 cats. Yes, my name is Cat, and yes, I have 3 cats. But I absolutely love your Rumble profile, and I need to know the name of your cat. I have Panther, Colt, yes, after Colt. The gun manufacturer, and Zilly. Those are my 3 cats, and I absolutely love them. Let's get into it. This is really heavy lifting, folks, so just bear with me. It was not a good weekend for news. Australian officials finally announced, the death toll from Sunday's terror attack at Bondi Beach in Sydney, Australia, has climbed to 14. I'm assuming that is going to go even higher. There are people hospitalized. So the leader, they call it a premier of New South Wales. This guy, Chris Minns, says that there's 42 people in New South Wales hospitals. So he's like the mayor, okay, or like the leader of New South Wales, okay, and he said that there's 42 people that were in hospitals overnight and had to stay overnight. So I'm imagining that death toll is going to climb further from 14 and go higher. Now the victims' ages all range. I mean, there were 10-year-olds and there were 87-year-olds. Very sad, devastating fact. So officials have announced that the terrorists, they were a father-son duo, and they carried out the attack. The father, age 50, was killed. I've watched videos of people taking the gun, I think from the son, He looked like he was the younger one, but there was this big gun, and then bystanders, they had, tackled the guy, grabbed the gun. The 24-year-old son was wounded and is in the hospital. 6 firearms were seized at the scene, according to the New South Wales Police. Commissioner Mal Lanen, this is the commissioner there, they said that all the 6 firearms that were seized at the scene were licensed to the father. So the 24-year-old, he wasn't ahead. It's interesting over there, you're licensed a gun in Australia. So ballistics testing did confirm that they were the weapons used in the attack. This is more from Sky News. Take a listen.
We have progressed at pace overnight with that investigation, and as a result of investigations undertaken, I can say that we are not looking for a further offender. We are satisfied that there were 2 offenders involved in yesterday's incident. One is deceased. The second is in critical but stable condition in hospital at the moment. The offenders are a 50-year-old and 24-year-old male who are father and son. The 50-year-old is deceased. The 24-year-old is currently in hospital at the moment. As part of the investigation, we conducted 2 search warrants last night, one at Bonnie Rig and a second at Campsie. The 50-year-old male is a licensed firearms holder. He has 6 firearms licensed to him. We are satisfied that we have 6 firearms from the scene yesterday, but also as a result of the search warrant at the Campsie address. Ballistics and forensic investigation will determine this morning that those 6 firearms are the 6 that were licensed to that man, but also that they were used in the offence yesterday at Bondi. We will continue to investigate this matter thoroughly. It's important for the community to have the reassurance that New South Wales Police, working with our Commonwealth partners, will not stop until we understand the reasons behind this senseless incident and take any available action that we need to do.
So that was Sky News. They said 16 on their Chiron there. So I don't know if it's 16. I've seen 15. The last I checked, it was 14. So at least 14 people, folks, we're looking at the death toll, and it's going to continue to rise. I'm sure, like I said, over 40 people were hospitalized. So the police commissioner there in New South Wales also said that there were 2 active improvised explosive devices, IEDs, and they were recovered at the scene by the rescue team and the bomb squad, the bomb disposal unit. They went to the scene. They grabbed the bombs. They did not detonate, from what I understand. They were able to recover those at the scene. Incredibly, almost all the speakers at this presser seem to think there's a question as to the motive. I don't know. When I look at this, I'm like, I don't think there's really a question to the motive here. I think the motive is pretty clear. They don't talk about the motive. They say, oh, the motive is still kind of in question. But yet they say the Jewish community was targeted. So I don't know, the Jewish hatred, Muslim terrorists, like I said. And I've gone into detail about really where this all comes from. Biblical times, Ishmael, Isaac, Jacob, Israel, like the 2 sons of Abraham. Okay, that's where this all comes from, where the Jewish Muslims, they go at it. Because there's, one lineage that is promised Israel, the promised land, and then one lineage is promised multiple nations, and they don't like their deal or their end of the deal. Okay, so this is a family feud. It's biblical between the Jewish and Muslim community. So I'm not shocked by this. But the Jewish community was targeted here. This was a Hanukkah event. So it bothers me when a bunch of people get out there in the presser and they're just like, we don't know the motive. It's ethnically motivated. It's religiously motivated. Okay, so anyway, the police commissioner said, the police chief said, we will not stop until we understand the reasons behind this senseless incident. Well, if you were to read the Bible, you would know. The sort of mayor there in New South Wales was one of the few who called out the toxic anti-Semitism. That's what this is. This is an intolerable situation, he says. Chris Minns is the guy who's the mayor there. This is an attempt to break apart our social life, to divide Australian against Australian. There's a massive role for the government, the New South Wales police, and regular citizens to play here to ensure that we keep our community safe. Yeah, and it starts with calling out what this is. Nobody really wants to call it out for what it is. It's anti-Semitism. It's ethnically motivated, racially motivated, culturally motivated, religiously motivated. And if you were to read the dang Bible, you'd know. He goes on, he says, this is a massive terrorist event in Australia's largest city, targeted on Jewish Australians. We need to get to the bottom of exactly how this happened so we can take the proper steps to ensure that it doesn't happen again. Part of that may be law reform. Now, you know how I feel about hate speech laws. You know how I feel about hate crime laws, things like that. Violence is violence. Prosecute it to the fullest extent of the law that you've currently got. Throw the book at them, lock them up. Make sure that this 24-year-old, the son who's hospitalized, father I think died, the son who's hospitalized never sees the light of day again. Okay, I don't like, prosecuting crimes based off hate, because hate is a very subjective term. I hate the color pink, right? Or I hate Hitler. There's room for hatred in society, or for expressing hatred, and to try to police that and prosecute that is just outrageous and impossible to do it justly and fairly. So he says here, part of that may be law reform. Australia, we kind of know what they did to people during COVID-19. It's not a place of freedom. Okay, so I would imagine that they're going to use this as an excuse to create more hate crime or hate speech laws. Okay, and that's not great for freedom. Punish the bad actors. Okay, punish the criminals. Death penalty for the 24-year-old who committed this heinous crime. Okay, so I don't know. I just hate to see a tragedy be exploited and take away more of the freedoms of the Australian people. But it's Australia. They probably don't have a whole lot of freedoms there anyway. So this is just, kind of a cherry on top of the sundae. So he says part of that may be law reform. Part of that will be a comprehensive police response. Don't know what exactly that means. When I hear that, I think police knocking on people's doors, trying to connect them to these two individuals. I don't know. But he goes on, he says, but it also goes down to a level of confronting racism and anti-Semitism in our community. We saw a shocking act of public violence, but we've seen time after time over the last 2 years in particular but we've seen that, even before that, of public acts of anti-Semitism in our community. So he's saying like the racism, the anti-Semitism has been on full display over the last couple of years. He talks a lot about in this statement, law reform, comprehensive police response, and I'm all for, making sure that the criminal gets prosecuted, never sees the light of day. I'm all for the police doing their job, but I didn't see anything in here about multiculturalism. I didn't see anything in here about immigration reform. And we know that a lot of Europe, Australia, these countries, our country, we've seen a flood of migrants, a flood, mass migration. This is something that is international, not just specific to the United States. So what he needs to come out and say is that, hey, mass migration, and I talked about the Tower of Babel on Friday, I think it was, in Genesis. This unity that we have, or this unity that liberals want us to have, where we all come together. That's not something that God wants. And I know that you're like, whoa, 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 wait, what'd you say? God's not for unity. He's not for division, but he's very clear about nations and people speaking foreign languages. He divvied us up because at that time in Tower of Babel, we were all coming together and we were trying to outsmart God. And he broke us up into different nations, and he's a God of nations and sovereignty, and he's pro that and pro borders. Bible's pretty clear about all of that. And it starts in Genesis, Tower of Babel. So I would have taken it a step further in this statement rather than say like a law reform or comprehensive police action. I would have said, hey, we're going to crack down on mass migration. We're going to crack down on the Muslim community migrating here, and we're going to make sure that the people who are coming to Australia want to be Australian, not just be in Australia to terrorize Jewish Australians. So he goes on in the statement. He says, it lights a fire. It's toxic. It gets into the marrow of the community, and only sensible, fair, and a just response is a community standing up as one and saying, we will not tolerate racism. We will not tolerate anti-Semitism in New South Wales. Just as I said, like, yes, that sounds all sweet, but you have to not tolerate multiculturalism. Okay, when they say we can't tolerate racism, that doesn't mean be tolerant of multiculturalism. And that's their problem right now, is this whole multiculturalism approach to migration. And he says, our solution is standing up as one, and this diversity. Well, diversity is kind of what's causing the problem, isn't it? If you didn't have this mass migration, I doubt these two terrorists would have been able to pull off this shooting, this attack in Australia at the Hanukkah event where there were 2,000 Jews present. Okay. And I'm not saying it should be based off race. I'm saying that, hey, you have to vet these people. And if they aren't serious about being Australian, and if they're there just to terrorize a certain ethnic group, there in your country, then you shouldn't allow them in. Much like here in the United States, are they going to abide by our Christian Western values, our morals? Do they want to be American, or do they want to come to America and be in America and bring their beliefs here and their culture here and try to kill people who don't conform to that culture? So every single woke Christian out there who says we can't have borders, or we shouldn't do mass deportations because they're inhumane, or they look at a verse in the Old Testament that's taken out of context, welcoming the stranger, or they misinterpret the Good Samaritan. Okay, they need to be forced to watch this. Full disclosure, this is really disturbing stuff. So if you've got kids watching, but I don't shy away from what actually happened, and I'm going to show you the clip because I don't want to do it any injustice. These people died. And this is for all those Christians out there who say we can't do mass deportations, or we can't vet people to make sure that they conform to the culture there in Australia or in the United States, that they want to be American or Australian, and that they're not there just to force their religious beliefs or their culture onto people. So Take a look at this. Really disturbing stuff. Let's see if I can play it. Hold on. I thought I was able to do this. Here we go. Okay, here we go. This is disturbing. They're trying to perform CPR on this guy. Just dead people all around. They've got covers over their dead. The dead's face. Truly disturbing stuff. And I say this to all you woke Christians out there, all you wokies who say we can't have mass deportations, we can't vet people, or you take things out of the Bible out of context, and the Old Testament verse welcoming the stranger, you take that out of context, you misinterpret it. You misinterpret the Good Samaritan. You need to be forced to watch that. Why? Because multiculturalism and mass migration is murder. It's murder. And then you are trying to defeat what God did at the Tower of Babel. He divided us up into nations, and we all speak different languages. And having sovereignty in nations and borders, that is of God. And coming together in this mass unity and rising up, collectivism. It's not something that God is for, clearly, in the Bible. So, and clearly it's devastating, this whole diversity thing, not tolerating racism. We can't tolerate racism. I get that, but we have to be selective of who we want in our countries and be sensible when selecting or when allowing people into our countries. And yeah, this is just an example of multiculturalism gone bad. It's truly tragic stuff. Not a good day for news, folks. It's really just not. It's tough. I do want to talk about what happened in Illinois. Another heavy lifting day or heavy lifting type story where it's just tough to get through. But good morning, my freedom lovers, my truth seekers. Good morning to everyone still clinging on to the idea that doctors should heal people rather than help them die. Okay, if you are that radical who says, "Oh, doctors should heal people, not kill people," I'm glad that you're here this morning and that you've joined the program. I hold a similar belief. Actually, I cling on to this radical idea that doctors should be saving people. So the Conservative Cat Show, we believe life is sacred. Government power should be limited, and legislation passed at 2 a.m. in the morning probably isn't something that you're going to proudly explain to Jesus on Judgment Day when you sponsored the bill at 2 a.m. It's not something you're going to want to explain to voters when you pass legislation like they did with this assisted suicide bill, the physician-assisted suicide bill. I'm going to take a few of your comments before I get into the physician-assisted suicide bill being signed by Governor J.B. Pritzker. Not something that I was anticipating. I thought he was going to be hesitant about this and not sign it due to him running in 2026, 2028 for the presidential race, possibly. So I was shocked when he signed this. I didn't see it coming. Appreciate. Yeah, I'm glad that you gave me the kitty's name, Smokey, the kitty in the profile picture here. He does look like a Smokey. I have 3 cats. I've got 3. I got a couple of outdoor cats that like to hang out by my garage there. They, I give them names, Creamer and what's the other one's name? socks because he looks like he's wearing white socks. He's all black and he's just got the white mittens. Hey kiddo, still kicking. Great. You're so glad you're here, Henry. I'm praying for you always, my friend. I know you got some health things going on. Always in my prayers. Congratulations on the 1K. The 1,000 subscribers. Thank you. It was incredible when I saw the notification. I was like, yes, we did it before Christmas. That was my goal when I started this up in June. Really started to focus on my YouTube channel. I was like, okay, we're gonna get this done by Christmas, and I got a couple of weeks left, so I'm happy about that. So very excited. Subscribe if you're new here. Let's see. The attack in Israel 2 years ago was the start of the new world conquering jihad. The West failed to respond, and this is what we face now. Yeah, I'd have to think about the what attack. Are you talking about October 7th? Not exactly sure what attack exactly you're talking about, but I mean, there's been several attacks in Israel, and I would say even the Israeli government failed to gather the intelligence, or they had the intelligence that Hamas was going to attack on October 7th, killing 1,200 people, and they ignored it outright, which I know is a huge claim, but there is evidence to suggest that they had some intelligence that Hamas would attack and kill all those women and children in the streets. And we're getting to a point now where after something like that a couple of years ago, Henry, yeah, you're talking about October 7th, great. We're getting to a point now after something like that, you don't come to a peace treaty. You don't come to a land deal. When you have people parachuting out of helicopters and raping women in the street and beheading children, like what happened on October 7th, there is no reconciliation that can happen at a government level. And we talked a lot about this on Friday. The only way is Jesus. At this point, I am of the belief the only way is Jesus. Jesus is the truth, the way, and the life. And both these sides, Muslim, Jew, what are they missing? Jesus. And I think the ultimate counselor, and that's actually biblically in Isaiah. I think it's Isaiah 6:9. Hold on, or 9:6. Let me look that up. Isaiah, I think it's 9:6. It's actually a great verse for Christmas time. Yeah. This is the prophecy about the Messiah, Jesus Christ. And Isaiah 9:6 says, "For us a child is born, to us a son is given. The government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be Wonderful Counselor." So, mighty God, everlasting Father, Prince of Peace, and a promising divine ruler who brings eternal justice and peace. So this is in Isaiah 9:6, and these names are very, like, we dismiss it, because I think counselor has a certain connotation. You might think of a school counselor. Wonderful Counselor, if you were to look at this in context, in the historical context, it's like almost like a military role. Somebody who brokers peace, somebody who kind of provides like wartime advice or like military strategy. So this term Wonderful Counselor is not like, oh, he's like somebody we go to with our problems. And I think that people misinterpret that or like dismiss that as like not, he's a leader and capable of brokering this peace. And if every knee would bow and profess Jesus Christ and Lord over their lives, we wouldn't see what's going on in the Middle East right now. But like you said, Henry, this happened 2 years ago. The West failed to respond under Joe Biden. Respond correctly, and I think that the Israeli government even failed to prevent something like an October 7th happening. Perhaps they had intelligence that it would happen, or at least some intelligence that something was going to happen that day. And like, I think this happened on Jewish festival, and one of their Jewish festivals, and they definitely had intel something was going to happen, and I don't think the Israeli government was on it. I know Joe Biden didn't do anything to really respond to that, but something like that you don't even really come back from. So I don't think that there is a peace treaty that could be brokered among men that would fix what's going on in the Middle East and this tension. Our best solution is to keep everybody separate. Tower of Babel, foreign language, foreign cultures, keep everyone separate, divide them up. And it doesn't mean that we don't love each other or respect each other, but trying to keep multiculturalism at a minimum. I think that's our approach internationally. You're seeing it in Europe. These jihadists, they go and they rape women at knife point. It's gotten out of control, and it's really mass migration. And I think that would be our best approach at this point, is just keep the cultures separate for right now. I mean, tensions are too high. So anyway, I do want to talk about this today. Governor J.B. Pritzker signed very quietly, kind of carefully. This was at Friday afternoon, early morning, kind of. So it was all wrapped in this emotional language, this bill. But make no mistake, Illinois has crossed a line with this one, and they've crossed a line it will never uncross. The governor has now legalized physician-assisted suicide for terminally ill adults. And this is a move being sold to us as compassion, choice, and freedom. And, these people, they're not for the death penalty. And I've been back and forth on the death penalty a few times because, let's face it, under somebody like Kamala Harris or the Biden administration, you lock up people who are protesting abortion outside of an abortion clinic, and they never get true justice, or they're ordered to be executed. I could see something like that happening. So I've never been really like pro death penalty, but after reading the Bible, Old Testament, this was the solution to kill somebody. If you kill someone, death penalty, because it values life. If we just say that you can kill someone and you get away with that without a consequence of the same extremity, then we're kind of like just like saying screw you to life, and we're not taking it seriously. So I struggle with the death penalty. My position on the death penalty, you guys know that I've talked about that for years, where it's a very touchy issue for me. Usually I'm very convicted, but I lean more towards pro death penalty in that we have to honor life. And the governor, he's selling this as like compassion, choice, and freedom. And scripture warns us, woe to those who call evil good and good evil. This is Isaiah 5:20. Because once the state decides some lives are no longer worth protecting, every life becomes conditional. Okay, and like doing away with death penalty in states. Illinois doesn't have the death penalty. It kind of all started there. Abortion, legalizing abortion, abortion on demand. It's all kind of started there, and it's just ballooned. We just don't value life. So let's break this down. What is this bill? It was Senate Bill 1950. It was passed with some of the tightest margins I've ever seen. So that means Democrats were voting against this. There were some Democrats who never voted, a good handful of them. And this bill actually got passed through without any kind of transparency. There was no public debate on it. It's been kind of talked about for the last couple of years. the disability advocates, medical people who are in medical ethics, faith leaders, they were never brought to the table to discuss this. So there was a lack of transparency, and it was passed in the dead of night on All Hallows Eve. Fascinating. That was passed that day. So according to State Representative Bill Howder, he's a practicing physician, Republican from Morton, he says, quote, "The process, it stinks." He says, quote, "In the center square, we passed this in the dead of night, 2 a.m., no warning to the disability groups, medical ethics groups, religious groups who were strongly opposed." Now ask yourself, how compassionate is this law if they had to rush it through, if it was passed by very tight margins? Why hide this law if it was so compassionate? Okay, why silence the opposition? Why not let the opposition debate this out in the sunlight? Because the architects of this bill, they know something the PR team doesn't want you to think about. That sunlight kills bad ideas. They know that this is a bad idea. They know it's controversial. They know that people don't like it. And then only a handful of states in Canada and, some silly European countries have passed this and have made it the law of the land over, in Canada. But people don't like it in Canada. People don't like it in the states that it's already been passed in. Sunlight kills bad ideas. So when you debate these out in public and you don't pass these in the dead of night, they wind up dying, these ideas, because people's eyes are on them. And Governor J.B. Pritzker, he says he was deeply impacted by the stories of terminal illness, and he was moved by freedom and choice at the end of life. So people at the end of their life should have a choice to kill themselves. And on top of, just devaluing life, what we're doing is we're saying that suffering has no place in society and that we want to eradicate suffering. And that is just anti-biblical. Your faith in God just elevates to a whole nother level when you suffer. I've had tragedy in my life, things gone on in my life, and my faith has grown so strong in those valleys. And there's something beautiful about suffering. And what they're trying to do here, and what Governor J.B. Pritzker is saying, is that he's deeply impacted by these stories of terminal illness. He's saying that we should have the choice to end our own suffering. And suffering is something that we have to go through. Job, Jesus Christ did it. Suffered, not nearly to the extent that we suffer here on earth. I mean, he underwent the ultimate suffering, so we'd be saved by grace, through faith. And, suffering is actually a beautiful thing. And I say this all the time, we can't know what hot is without cold. I know that it's very, very cold there in Illinois, -25 with wind chill. But if we didn't have that -25 with wind chill, we wouldn't know what a 70 degrees, sunny, crispy fall day would be like. Okay, we have to have the opposites in order to understand the fullness of the beautiful 70-degree weather. Okay, and have an appreciation for it. This governor, he's coming out and he's saying that, yeah, freedom of choice at the end of your life. This is coming from a guy who shut down the churches, kept liquor stores open. You didn't have a choice to go to church during the pandemic, mandated medical procedures, forced vaccinations, at the same time preaching bodily autonomy, for 12-year-old girls to go get their abortion. Okay. He expanded Medicaid just recently with the medical omnibus bill that was signed into law. It takes effect. Some of the provisions take effect on January 1st. Talked about that last week. And that's really detrimental to the taxpayer. This expanding of Medicaid expanded it for women to have doulas, but beyond that, not just doulas, abortion doulas. So if you're taking a chemical abortion here in the state of Illinois, you can have somebody hold your hand through that process, and it's all paid for by the taxpayer. Illinois families are fleeing the state because of these things. And now all of a sudden, government interference is the villain. Dude, you are the epitome of government interference, JB. Okay, look what you did during the pandemic. So don't sit here and tell me that this is about choice. Okay, and we don't get to choose our suffering. I mean, that's not something that is up to us, whether we suffer or not. That's something that's up to God to either deepen our faith or, and I really truly believe that's where suffering ultimately leads you. Even if you suffer and then you die, I think that even through that suffering, the terminally ill cancer patient, then ultimately, you don't come out the other end. Some people come out the other end, have these incredible testimonies about a second chance at life and how they were saved. And, through that, their faith just was elevated to a whole nother level. Some people do just die, but I believe that even through that suffering and then ultimately death, the suffering deepens their faith, and then their rewards in heaven are that much greater because they've deepened their faith through that suffering. So let's be clear. This law does not remove government from your life. It redefines life itself as negotiable. That life is just something to be negotiated. And this is where it gets really dark. The Legislative Black Caucus, they were actually not for this. So there's this Black Caucus in Illinois, a lot of Chicago Dems. They didn't like this. And here's where it gets really dark. Insurance companies, and we're already seeing this in places that have passed this in Canada, and State Representative Bill Hutter, he didn't mince words. He says it creates a two-tiered system where insurance companies look at a patient who can't afford the expensive cancer treatment or whatever it is, and they essentially say, well, maybe you should consider suicide. So ultimately, we're going to have people with, private health care, wealthy people with private health care, and then we're going to have people who go commit suicide via the physician-assisted suicide because they're a burden on society, they're a burden on their families, and insurance companies won't pay for them, and they give them the option of killing themselves. This is, not overt coercion. It's not a gun to a head, but it's financial pressure on these people who are undergoing things like cancer treatment. There's a lot of financial pressure there, on your family to help you get you through the cancer treatment, rather than providing you that cancer treatment. What insurance companies are going to say is, have you considered killing yourself? That would just be a whole lot easier than trying to figure out how to pay for this thing. So, who do you think this is going to affect first? And the Legislative Black Caucus understands this. The wealthy people with the private doctors, they're not going to be affected by this, but the poor, the disabled, the elderly, the chronically ill, they're going to be affected by this, and they're going to see it as their only way out, physician-assisted suicide. So history answers this question for us. Who's going to be affected first? It's going to be the chronically ill, the disabled, the poor, the elderly. And they're going to opt for what's not a burden on their family and not a burden on society. And that's not good for, I said that, hey, we all need suffering. You and I, we need suffering in order to understand the fullness of grace and the fullness of, the opposite of suffering, which is blessing. So we need to suffer. But we also need others to suffer so that way we can come through for them. Okay, so those who are not suffering, for example, say you're not the one with cancer and undergoing cancer treatment, but your sister is, right? You, as a brother or sister in Christ, have an obligation to strengthen that person up and to fill them up with the words, so that way they have the faith to get through it. And, we have a role as those who are not undergoing the suffering, but we have a role to play as, uh, you know, brothers and sisters in Christ, to fellowship with that person and to provide them that cancer treatment. Your family, has an obligation to help you. Okay, so this is just all the way around. It destroys what we are supposed to do as community members, as family members, and it tries to end suffering, and we are trying to end suffering. And Jesus Christ already did that on the cross. Like, we have the eternal promise, this promise that can't be taken away in the spirit realm. The devil can't touch heaven. Okay, so the suffering was already ended on the cross with the resurrection of Jesus Christ. So our suffering, there's already an end to it. Okay, so that's already been done. And what they're trying to do here, the Democrats or the architects of this bill, they're trying to say that we can end suffering ourselves. And it's already been done by Jesus Christ. We can't end our own suffering. It's just silly. So supporters insist that this law has strict criteria, that you've got to have 2 physicians sign off on it. You got to have the mental capacity. I don't know anybody who's like terminally ill who has the mental capacity to make this decision. By the way, when you get a terminal diagnosis, I don't think you're in the mental state to make a decision like this. So, like, if you receive a terminal diagnosis, like, you are already mentally incapacitated. So you can't give informed consent. You can't be mentally capable of making a decision like this. And that there's like waiting periods too. And it all sounds great until like you read the fine print of the bill, and then you find out that medical staff can't be present or doesn't have to be present when you're taking this litany of lethal drugs. So there's a regimen here where you have to take these drugs, and it's multiple drugs. And patients have reported that when ingesting these dozens of pills, they experience things like vomiting, seizures, prolonged suffering. Okay, so the very thing you're trying to end, suffering, which was already ended by Jesus Christ on the cross, no matter what you go through on earth, right? No matter what you go through on earth, you have this promise of heaven, a place where all you're going to want to do is worship your creator, and like you're just going to sing and worship. You know, that's what happens in heaven. And like, we already have that assurance and that hope. So trying to end suffering is just duplicative or like redundant, because it's already been ended. Like, no matter what you go through on earth, you have that blessed assurance, if you profess Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior, that you will be in a place that's far greater than this place, earth. And, you know, in some cases, you've got people taking these pills and they don't even die. Okay. In some cases, there's a failure to die, and they're sitting there vomiting and seizing and suffering, and they don't even die. And like, how do we even know that these pills aren't painful? Right? They say that this is just ending suffering. Okay. Have you ever talked to somebody who came back, you know, from taking these pills and said, yeah, that was actually a really peaceful way to go? Is it? Because like, maybe you're hallucinating. You know, this is a regimen of pills. We have no idea what these people experience moments before death. Okay. So this isn't mercy. It's medical roulette. State Representative Bill Hutter says something that's very crucial here. I don't care what doctors are out there. They can't predict life expectancy. Okay. They can give you a 6-month prognosis, but there's times where they're wrong all the time. Okay. Like a majority of the time, where patients outlive them, those prognoses by years. Okay. So they can't predict, doctors can't predict life expectancy. So how many lives will be ended prematurely? Not because death was inevitable, but because hope was withdrawn. They thought there was no hope. Okay. And we have this hope. Somebody already ended our suffering. His name's Jesus, and he rose on the third day. So we have this hope, this assurance that we won't be suffering anymore. So yeah, it's just redundant to try to end our own suffering, because it's like, no, your suffering has already ended. You're going to have the best life that anybody could possibly have, or the best afterlife that anybody could possibly have when you're in heaven. So yeah, I mean, a lot of people are going to be prematurely dead as a result of this. Not to mention, there's something called the conscientious objection clause. And supporters say that, oh, look at this, a conscientious objection clause, and it's very comforting. Wrong. It's not. So doctors, they're allowed to object, but they're still required to refer patients to somebody who will give them the regimen of pills. And like I said, no medical professional has to be there. And hell, you could order the pills, have them shipped to your house, never take them, and then, your kid gets into them. A small child who doesn't understand what's going on, eats all the pills, dies. Like, yeah, this is bad. This is bad stuff. And this is not conscientious objection, or conscientious objection, in that the doctors still have to refer patients. Okay. So that's not conscience protection. That's forced complicity. Okay. So Howder said it exactly right in the center square quote. That is still partaking in the process when you refer somebody out. So say you're a doctor, you're morally against this, you're religiously against this, and you object to this. You still have to partake in it by referring that person to a different doctor who doesn't object to it. So legally, this is where the state has kind of screwed up. I think they've stepped in it, and they're going to be having to answer for this to this in court. So Thomas Olb, he's quoted in the center square. He's an executive vice president of Thomas More Society. He's an attorney, and calls this law what it is. He says it crosses a big red line. He says it violates the Illinois Right of Conscience Act. So there's this Right of Conscience Act, like, hey, I don't want to provide you these pills as a doctor because I just don't morally agree with it. Do no harm, right? My Hippocratic oath. And he says that this violates that, because that doctor has to go a step further and refer that person to a doctor that will. So that violates the Illinois Right of Conscience Act. First Amendment, you have religious freedoms. Your religion will say, hey, suffering is very important. We all have to undergo it at some point in our lives. And it deepens your faith. Suffering is already ended. You can't end your own suffering. Jesus ended it on the cross some 2,000 years ago, and resurrected and defeated the grave. So your suffering is already ended. You just have to profess Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior, and you get all of the assurances of heaven. And it violates that, and you're right to that as a doctor who is Christian, a Christian doctor. Now there's longstanding moral and legal tradition here that they're violating. For centuries, medicine has operated under one rule: don't kill your patient. Right? Like, that is the one rule doctors are supposed to follow. You cannot directly kill your patient. You cannot indirectly kill your patient. You can't politely kill your patient. Like, this is the one rule: do no harm. Don't kill your patient. And Thomas Olb, he warns that this law undermines religious hospitals. So particularly Catholic institutions, and there's a ton of Catholic institution or Catholic hospitals. Okay. So most hospitals have some sort of religious element to them. So these Catholic institutions are governed by ethical standards. Okay. And usually it's a board of people. They come up with an ethical standard, and that's how these hospitals operate. And A lot of these Catholic institutions, Catholic hospitals, most likely if you've ever been to a hospital, it's a Catholic hospital and it's operated, or like there's an ethical board. And most of these boards, they forbid assisted suicide. Well, guess what this law does? It allows doctors to participate on their own time. And even if the hospital prohibits it, like the board, the ethical board, they come up with this like, hey, no assisted suicide. Doctors can still prescribe these pills anyway outside of the hospital in which they're employed under. Translation, I mean, the state is telling religious institutions your beliefs end where my ideology begins, where our ideology begins. And this is so bad. Like, this is really bad for First Amendment. And then you have a bunch of doctors who are undermining their employer. And you're going to destroy these institutions. You're going to destroy these hospitals and the chain of command operation. You have to have an ethical guideline. And now you're blurring it. And now these doctors don't know what they can and can't do. And yeah, it's just bad. So the Catholic Conference of Illinois said it best, quote, true compassion means helping people live, not helping them die. And there's already something called medical aid in dying. Okay, I want to get to a few of your comments. Like, there's already something like that where you limit the suffering. Okay, you don't eliminate it because you are quite literally incapable of eliminating suffering. Christ did it on the cross. But Christian compassion does not mean shortening suffering by eliminating the sufferer. Okay, like eliminating it, or the person. Okay, you can shorten suffering. You can, aid in dying, medical aid in dying. This is, I don't know, morphine or whatever can ease people into dying. But outright taking somebody's life, like it's just anti-biblical. So Christ didn't say, blessed are those who give up. He didn't say that. Okay. He healed, he stayed, he suffered with us, for us. And once a society decides death is an acceptable solution to suffering, you've got mentally ill people who become terminal. You've got disabled people who become burdensome. You've got people in old age who become inconvenient. And we've seen this before, and we're seeing it in places like Canada. And it never ends well. It's always expanded. They say, oh, you've got to be mentally capable. You've got to have 2 physicians. You've got to have a waiting period, all this criteria. But eventually, it's going to extend to people who are disabled. It's going to extend to people who are mentally suffering with things like depression, suicide, old people who are inconvenient or burdensome to their family. So this law doesn't take effect until September of 2026. So we've got time for legal challenges, public resistance. So I don't know. I think that we're at a point that now, though, where we've normalized assisted suicide. The question is no longer if it expands, it's who's next. Is it going to be the disabled community? Is it going to be our mentally ill people who suffer from depression, anxiety? Is it going to be our elderly? That is where we're at now. There will be legal challenges. I think that Illinois Right of Conscience Act has been violated. Doctors, they have got to be able to object fully and not, refer somebody to a doctor who is pro that, because essentially you're partaking in that process. And the whole point of conscientious objection is that the doctor says no, but you can't really say no. You have to refer that person. So I think that there's going to be legal challenges. Let's get to some of your comments. You want them to suffer was what I got when I posted about how disgusting it is. So I've had people doing just that. You want them to suffer. Have they given anything on doctors having to do it or not? Yes. So you can conscientious object. It's called conscientious objection. Doctors can say, no, I don't want to, but then they have to follow that up with a referral. So it's not really, that's where that legal challenge comes in. And I would just say, if you say how disgusting this is, and people say you want them to suffer, I would say yes. I know that sounds like, whoa, like clickbaity or like rage baity. Yes, I do want people to suffer. And not in a sense that I want people to feel pain or misery or have these feelings of despair. I don't want that. Nobody wants, people to undergo something like that. But suffering is the only way to know what true grace and mercy and goodness is. Okay. Like if I dip my hand in cold water and if I dip my hand in hot water, I wouldn't know the difference between the both of them if I didn't have one and the other. You know what I mean? So it's like we have to have suffering in order to know what great grace and mercy looks like. And yes, suffering, that was something that God wanted. So that is something that suffering, not God wanted, but suffering is something that is inevitable because of sin, and we fall short. Okay, Adam and Eve, they took the apple. Okay, the original sin, and it is a consequence of sin. Now, through Jesus Christ, we have this assurance, this hope in heaven, and where we don't have to suffer anymore. There is no pain, no misery, no nothing like that in heaven. And it can't be touched. Heaven can't be touched by the devil. This is the devil's world. Why? Because sin is here and it's inevitable. Like God didn't want, suffering, but that's a result. Death, suffering is a consequence of sin. Okay, so we have to have it here because we are sinful inherently. And, that's very clearly demonstrated in Genesis, Adam and Eve. We were supposed to live with God, talk to God, see God all the time, not experience any kind of pain or suffering. But because we took the apple, God was very clear, don't do it. But because we took the apple and we ate it, the forbidden fruit, and we disobeyed, that's why we can't have this like no suffering on earth. And these people don't get that. Why? Because they're pagan, Satanists. So really, that's what this is all about. It's quite literally the approach of, hey, you can end your suffering, and that it's already it's not been ended by Jesus Christ. It's already been ended. You have a hope in heaven. And they want to convince you that you can end it all here now on earth, and that there is no other place other than earth. Why? Because the devil convinces you that this is the world. The world is what you operate in. But we are not of this world. So, yeah, they're just satanic people who were the architects of this bill. I got to get to suffering. Let me look this up. Suffering is the Lord's anvil, where we are forged into worthy vessels of his love. Yes. Henry. I could not have said it better myself, my friend. So can you check, see how many red states are trying to add medical aid in dying? Yeah, I think that there's 7 states. A lot of them, no red states, I don't think have passed it. Red states with assisted suicide. Montana. That was fascinating. Yeah, I did see that. So Montana, so we've got California, Colorado, Maine, Vermont, New Jersey, New Mexico, Hawaii, Delaware, Illinois. I think that's it. Oh, states like Montana are considering it. Sorry about that. Arizona, Indiana, and Missouri are considering it. God, this is so sad. Well, and you've got those people in the red states who are like, yeah, libertarian types, chewing their tobacco, spitting it out in a can. Nothing against chewing, but they're like, yeah, libertarian choice. I'm all about choice. And, we don't get a choice in this matter because it's already been done. Jesus did it on the cross. He's already ended the suffering. So, these are anarchists. Okay. People who say that you get to do whatever you want to do. That's anarchy. That's why I say I'm not a libertarian. You've got some of these red states, I would imagine libertarian-esque Republicans are pushing for that. And there's bipartisan push for that because obviously the left is all about death. And then you've got the right that doesn't have, and I've found that libertarians are just Republicans without Jesus. So you've got the, right, the libertarian right who just says like, yeah, this is about choice. We want our guns, we want our dead babies, and we want, our ability to commit suicide. And that's just anarchy, just plain and simple, just straight up anarchy. So yeah, fascinating. I did not know that, Ryan, that there were red states considering this. I kind of dismissed it as like Washington, Oregon, California, Colorado. But I mean, it's a growing list and you've got red states considering it. So I thought more coming next year is what Glenn has said. Several red states even. Yeah. Glenn Beck. I'm assuming you're talking about Glenn Beck, that he's talked about this. I've always dismissed it as whatever, like leftist states do this. Like Illinois is extreme. I was shocked actually to hear that Governor J.B. Pritzker pulled this stunt because he seemed so hesitant in the beginning. And the reason for that, I would imagine, is because the Legislative Black Caucus doesn't like this. And like this was passed by very tight margins. And you don't want to sign anything that controversial when you're looking for a presidential bid or when you're looking to win your 2026 gubernatorial race. Like, yeah, I didn't expect him to sign it, but his leftist ideology got the best of him, I guess. And, of course, I don't think J.B. Pritzker is saved. He doesn't profess himself to be a Christian. So he doesn't understand that suffering's already ended. Like your suffering, gone. Like you have a new hope in heaven. Whatever you're going through on earth, pain, misery, despair, there is an assurance for you in heaven, and it can't be taken away. Why? Because there's a guy who underwent literally was crying blood, sweating blood, a rare condition. Nobody's really undergone it except Jesus, and where he was sweating blood, underwent the ultimate suffering and eradicated that suffering by resurrecting on the third day. All right, let's get to Rob Reiner and his wife. Very heavy lifting this morning. I know. I didn't want to start out your week with despair and sadness. And I know earlier today we talked about the death toll rising in Sydney, Australia. There was a terrorist attack. They say we don't know what the motivation was. Yeah, I guess we don't know what the motivation was. I mean, it was like, I don't know, Jewish people, 2,000 Jewish people getting together for a Hanukkah event, but whatever. Of course, it was ethnically motivated, religiously motivated. These were clearly Muslim guys. I don't know. I just don't understand the authorities where they're like, we're still like searching the motivation, but the Jewish people were targeted. Okay, the motivation was that they wanted to kill Jewish people. I mean, I don't understand, but whatever. And multiculturalism is murder. Mass migration is murder. Now, that's what we got from that story. We've talked about the assisted suicide becoming the law of the land here in Illinois. Now we got to talk about this. This is weird. And I haven't seen anything come from it yet. Let me double check because it's been about an hour into the show. Don't know if we have any breaking news on it. I'm going to double check for you. just a bunch of tributes. He and his wife died in their house. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything new come out on this. So they were found dead in Los Angeles in their Brentwood home on Sunday. Both of them suffered what authorities are saying injuries consistent with stab wounds. Okay, so were they stabbed? We don't even know. The authorities are saying like, well, their injuries consistent with stab wounds. Like they won't even give you anything on this story, which is kind of odd. Which is what leads me to believe that this might have been the son. That's been whispered, rumored. So full disclosure, anytime I don't have solid evidence for something, I say I don't have the evidence for this thing. This is complete conjecture and putting together context clues. What I think will happen is that we find out that this was his troubled son. I don't know. We'll have to see. Maybe it was a home intruder. In addition to portraying the character Meathead on the long-running, groundbreaking sitcom All in the Family in the 1970s, alongside Carol O'Connor and Gene Stapleton, Ron Reiner, this Hollywood director, or Rob Reiner, this Hollywood director, he has been known to have multiple massive box office hits. I haven't seen a lot of this stuff. I've seen bits and pieces of a lot of his stuff. Okay. And I can appreciate the bits and pieces. I fell asleep during The Princess Bride, full disclosure. So I don't know, maybe I'm not as huge as a Rob Reiner fan as like maybe others. But I can appreciate the dedication and the work that he's put into a lot of his, movies. So you have the 1984 mockumentary. This is called This Is Spinal Tap. And he had classics like Stand By Me, The Princess Bride. I did watch that one partly. I fell asleep. When Harry Met Sally, I watched part of that one. Misery, and of course, A Few Good Men. His politics were left-leaning, Rob Reiner. I can't say that I thoroughly enjoyed his work. I didn't know a whole lot of it. I'm going to pay tribute to the few scenes that I do know and that I do like out of his movies. But the details of this case are just inadequate. I don't know what happened. You don't know what happened, and I'm waiting for more details. But here's what we know. According to the reports, Rob Reiner, he starred in All in the Family. He directed movies including This Is Spinal Tap, A Few Good Men, When Harry Met Sally. He was found dead Sunday afternoon in his Brentwood home alongside his wife. He was 78 and his wife was in her 60s. The deaths were confirmed by TMZ and People. Also kind of strange. Tabloidy. I don't know. TMZ, People magazine, like this sounds like that somebody might have tipped them, and that somebody might have been the stabber, the murderer. The incident is being investigated as a homicide, according to LAPD. You know what I'm saying? Like a TMZ and People got a hold of this. Maybe it's some whack job who wanted to take credit for it and then called, tipped off TMZ, tipped off People. It's just odd that they would be at these publications would be at the forefront here of the news, and they were the ones who confirmed it. Like, you know what I mean? They're not the ones listening to police scanners, right? They're the ones in the bushes, paparazzi camera in this celebrity's face. So strange. The couple was reported to have been stabbed to death. So I don't like Rob Reiner's politics. He was leftist. I've criticized his politics in the past. I don't think today is the time or place to do that, to criticize his politics. We should be remembering some of the great work that he's done. A lot of people like his movies. He was one of the greats in Hollywood. a lot of people can quote The Princess Bride, and they've never even watched it, i.e. me. Like I've watched it, but I fell asleep during a good chunk of it. So this is a part from The Princess Bride that everybody can quote. And it's a great scene. Take a look.
Good heavens. Are you still trying to win? You've got an overdeveloped sense of vengeance. It's going to get you into trouble someday.
Hello. My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. Hello. My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. Hello! My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. Stop saying that! Oh! Hello!
So great scene. Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya, and you killed my father. Prepare to die. Like, that line is legendary. Lots of other lines that are legendary. Take a look at this scene. This is from A Few Good Men, and you've got Tom Cruise, Jack Nicholson. This line that everybody kind of recites. I haven't even seen this movie in its entirety. I think I fell asleep. Like I said, not a huge Rob Reiner fan, but I can respect the work and the legendary impact that he had in Hollywood and filmmaking. Take a look at this. This is another scene.
You snotty little bastard.
Your Honor, I'd like to ask for a recess.
I'd like an answer to the question, Judge.
The court will wait for an answer.
If Lieutenant Kendrick gave an order that Santiago wasn't to be touched, then why did he have to be transferred? Colonel, Lieutenant Kendrick ordered the code red, didn't he? Because that's what you told Lieutenant Kendrick to do.
Object!
And when it went bad,
That'll be all,
you cut
Counsel.
these guys loose!
Your Honor!
You had
Counsel, I'll
Marcus
hold you
inside
in
a bony
contempt.
transport!
Your Honor!
You doctored the logbook!
Damn it, Captain!
You coerced the doctor!
Consider
I'm
yourself in
asking you.
contempt.
Colonel Jessup, did you order the code red?
You don't have to answer that question.
I'll answer the question. You want answers?
I think I'm entitled to.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth. Son, we live in a world that has walls, and those walls have to be guarded by men with guns. Who's gonna do it? You? You, Lieutenant Weinberg? I have a greater responsibility than you can possibly fathom. You weep for Santiago and you curse the Marines. You have that luxury. You have the luxury of not knowing what I know, that Santiago's death, while tragic, probably saved lives, and my existence, while grotesque and incomprehensible to you, saves lives. You don't want the truth because deep down in places you don't talk about at parties, you want me on that wall. You need me on that wall. We use words like honor, code, loyalty. We use these words as the backbone of a life spent defending something. You use them as a punchline. I have neither the time nor the inclination to explain myself to a man who rises and sleeps under the blanket of the very freedom that I provide, and then questions the manner in which I provide it. I would rather you just said thank you and went on your way. Otherwise...
All right. So that was a bit of the scene. The line, "You can't handle the truth." Okay, everybody knows that legendary line. Bottom line, we simply don't know right now. I've been checking kind of this morning who might have inflicted these stab wounds on the Reiners. His wife found dead. He dead. I mean, this is truly tragic. I don't know if it was a relative or a crazed intruder, maybe something else entirely. People, TMZ, I'm just reading into it a little bit. The fact that they got this tells me it could be a crazed intruder who wanted to take credit in one of these tabloid magazines. You know, it's fascinating. Some of these crazed people, they are like fascinated with celebrities and obsessive over celebrities. And it's truly just an absence of of Jesus. And that's something that, like, I've never quite understood about criminal psychology, is that they have a fixation on celebrities. And it might just be consuming too much television. So it could have been like a crazy intruder who had a fixation on celebrities, but it could have been a relative. There's been reporting that his son was extremely troubled and could be the culprit, although that has not been confirmed. But it tells me, you know, that could be privacy for the family. That could be the case, and that the police haven't even like gone as far as to say that yes, they were stabbed. They said they have wounds that are consistent with stabbing or with knife wounds. So they haven't even really like said like officially it was a stabbing. So they're being very close to the chest on this one. And I will bring you more if I find out here during the duration of the show. But in the meantime, whatever Rob Reiner thought about politics, his leftist ideology, he didn't deserve this. Fate, he and his wife, I rest in peace. You know, this is a true tragedy and some very heavy lifting this morning. I mean, we talked about assisted suicide. We talked about Rob Reiner and his wife dying in this really weird, tragic way that's been hush hush. We talked about the Sydney, Australia mass shooting where you had Jewish people targeted by what appears to be Muslim men, father and son duo, who killed over 14 people. We're looking at 14 to 16 right now. That death toll expected to climb. There's over 40 people hospitalized from the Hanukkah event where 2,000 Jews were gathered. So I want to shift gears. I've got one more story I want to get to this morning. Erica Kirk. So CBS aired this town hall, and Erica Kirk was answering questions. She is now the CEO of TPUSA. She's the widow of TPUSA Charlie Kirk, TPUSA founder Charlie Kirk. So the Kirk assassination in September, Erica, she took the mantle as CEO, something that was said to be Charlie's wishes. I don't doubt that for a second. You know, you might have these crazed people online who say, that's crazy. Charlie Kirk would have never done that. No, Charlie Kirk was a Protestant Christian. He believed in the Bible and took the Bible for what it said. And the Bible says, leave an inheritance to your children. His children are obviously too young to inherit TPUSA. So leaves it to his widowed wife. I'm actually in this book right now, which is so good. It's actually by Shannon Brame, Fox News. And it's called The Women of the Bible Speak. Very incredible. Like, I don't necessarily agree with Jewish customs like this, but it's very odd. But Old Testament, here's what they did. The Jews, what they would do is a widow would actually marry the brother, and the brother was expected to provide for that widow. Widows are in the Bible. There's a lot of verses about widows and how you're not to talk ill of widows or to mistreat widows. So I think it's Exodus 22:22. Yeah, it is. Let me actually pull up Exodus 22:22. It says, you shall not mistreat any widow or fatherless child. If you do mistreat them, then cry out to me. I will surely hear their cry, and my wrath will burn. Okay, so very serious. A warning against treating widows badly. Okay, you do not want to treat widows badly. Because if Erica Kirk cries out to her God, there will be wrath. Okay, so Erica Kirk, she took this mantle, and people say like, "Oh, she shouldn't have," or "That wasn't Charlie's wishes." You guys are crazy because Charlie was a Protestant Christian. There's no reason to believe that he did not leave the company to his wife. Okay, of course he wants something for his children. This was his legacy. So CBS News, they have this town hall, And the conversation was moderated by Barry Wise. And the conversation was focused on political violence. Okay, so Erica Kirk, she has been caught up in a storm of controversy, rumor, conspiracy theories. They say that she's not grieving. And I agree with you. The grief is weird. The way she's grieving, I believe, is weird. It's not really for me to say. It's strange. Some of these interviews, they seem very robotic, canned, and I just don't believe that I'd grieve the same way, my husband in the same way. However, you're not getting that she is a totally different planet. Okay, so Team USA, surrounded by money, surrounded by political figures. I mean, she's very close to the president of the United States. Like, this is a totally different world. So she, at this point, and this is just speculation, I think that she's just trying to carry on her husband's legacy. I believe that she thinks that it was taken too short, and she is in full blown, like, what can I do to further my husband's legacy and not cut his life short? And she just is stepping into this role of TPUSA CEO. And, maybe it's a form of denial that Charlie Kirk is still here and that her husband is still here and he can live through her, and his legacy can continue on through her. But it's a totally different world. Like, she's got ample resources. The way you and I would grieve, like, totally different than Erica Kirk. Like, she doesn't have to worry really about money. And like, this is why widows in Exodus 22:22, where it says, don't mistreat the widow or the fatherless child. In biblical times, and even now, men, the provider, the husband, you take that away from children and from a wife who rely on that man. That's a huge deal. But she doesn't have that. You know what I mean? Like, financially speaking, like, it's a huge deal, but financially speaking, and as far as like people taking care of her children, like, that's been set up, that's been taken care of. I think she's at a point right now where she's like, I need to make it look like Charlie's still living through his business and through his legacy, TPUSA. I think she's in that mindset, not in the mindset of how am I going to continue living and having my basic necessities provided for, because that was never something that, she had to worry about marrying into this Kirk family, marrying into this TPUSA conglomerate. It's huge. So CBS editor in chief Barry Wise moderated this conversation. Wise shared questions with her guests, particularly, most notably, the Utah Valley University student Hunter Kozak, who was the questioner of Charlie Kirk, who Charlie Kirk was addressing when Charlie Kirk was hit by the assassin's bullet. Then there was Robert Milgram. Robert Milgram is the father of the Israeli embassy staffer, Sarah Milgram, who was murdered back in May of this year, 2025. She was murdered in front of the DC Capitol Jewish Museum. Okay, so that was Sarah Milgram, and her father asked questions of Erica Kirk, and there were questions, shared. This is a town hall with the Hunter Kozak, who's the questioner that Charlie Kirk was addressing right before he died. So she chose this Barry Wise character from CBS, chose Erica Kirk. Now, Erica Kirk, for her first ever like town hall style conversation. Okay, and this is kind of a bold move by CBS, and I think that this is one of those pendulum swinging type things where we're done with the woke BS, we're done with the trans crap, we're done with the diversity, and you're starting to see this woke culture fade. And Barry Weiss made it plain that she wants to move away from the network's leftist ideology, the Democrat propaganda, and she wants to move back towards news events, things that Americans care about, not just, the selected or the few or the elite talking about, ideology that the elite cares about, white privilege. This is stuff that you and I don't care about. So this Barry Weiss, CBS, she decided to have Erica Kirk on. And she introduced this as the first town hall, as her first town hall. And she said, quote, "We live in a divided country, a country where many people feel like they can't speak across the political divide or across their own kitchen table. One of the goals of this new CBS News, the new CBS News, is that we're going to change that. Tonight's town hall with Erica Kirk is the first of many conversations and debates about things that matter most, which are often the hardest to talk about." So I think that there is this shifting going on. Now, people were saying that, oh, Erica Kirk, and you got your conspiracy theorists online. She's in bed with legacy media. They're propping her up to be some sort of presidential candidate or some sort of politician. And, they wanted to take Charlie Kirk out because they want to prop up Erica. No. The legacy media and the advertisers here, they don't like what CBS did. They don't like that they had Erica Kirk on. And when you look at the finances of it, it's very clear that Barry Weiss's CBS's new format here, to the center in interviewing people. Like, I hate to even say that this is a shift to the center. They're just simply giving a platform to somebody who is not a rabid leftist or one of these professors on campuses or one of these experts. You've got major advertisers here who sat out and did not fund this town hall that happened on Saturday. Okay, so that tells me all I really need to know. Follow the money. This is not where Erica Kirk is in bed with legacy media and she's trying to elevate herself to a position, a political position. No. The money's not there. This is not something that's accepted by mainstream media, legacy media overall. You can see that the advertiser dollars were sitting out in this town hall. So this lack of revenue from those advertisers could prove challenging as far as the viability of this new format for CBS, which Barry Weiss wants to expand. So the editor-in-chief here, she wants to expand this new format where it's more news and events that Americans care about, not so much like leftist propaganda, Democrat, being on experts, people with, graduate degrees, master degrees coming on and lecturing us about, taking the jab or whatever. Okay, so she wants to move away from that and have conversations. So Weiss, she assured the audience that they want more conversations like the one they're having with Erica Kirk here, and that this would be a pillar of the news division. Conversations with people that we don't even necessarily like or don't share our same ideology. And Weiss, in the interview, as a moderator, told the viewers that they weren't going to agree with everything that would transpire in this town hall. She actually said, quote, "The only way we get to the truth is by talking to one another." Weiss then introduced Erica Kirk, who thanked Weiss for an opportunity to have a conversation, and a conversation that Charlie really enjoyed. So let's take a listen to some of this. Here we go.
Because it was an opportunity to be able to have a conversation that Charlie always enjoyed, being able to have dialogue on both sides so that people could really hear everything that's going on. I appreciate it.
Okay, so that was that part where she said, dialogue is very important. And I find myself, Erica Kirk, I think, is a much better woman than I am. I find myself not wanting to have a conversation with these people anymore. That the time for cutesy time is over and that the time for conversating ended when the assassin's bullet took Charlie Kirk's life. And in high resolution, we saw the blood spewing out of his neck. I said, okay, well, the time for chatting with these people was over. So she's a much better woman than I. Definitely led by God. And, people say, like, she's not grieving correctly. You can see it in her eyes, folks, the difference. And I'll have to try to find the supercut. Somebody, shared a lot of, I know when they announced their engagement, I was watching that Charlie Kirk show, and she was just like this giddy girl. She was like, I can't even look at you. And like, she had all of this light in her eyes. Here, she looks angry, righteous anger, but she's also like very like cold. And, this is a saying, it looks like her pink was taken away from her, where she's just not this bubbly, young woman anymore. And I can see that in her eyes, and in these interviews, she's just kind of cold, and people think that's really weird. And it is. And it's weird to you and I because we don't live in the world that Erica Kirk lives in. Like, we worry about groceries, getting groceries, finances, right? And we worry about getting the kids to school on time, getting to soccer practice. Like, she doesn't have to worry about any of that because of the amount of money and the amount of influence in her circle. And I mean, she's friends with the president, close to the president. So that's a totally different world that they live in. And you're not going to grieve in that way. She's probably in a form of denial that Charlie Kirk is in, and she thinks that she can, promote Charlie's book and somehow he's still alive, and go to all of these TPUSA events and host these huge cathedral-looking events with the fireworks, and somehow his legacy isn't dead. And it's kind of like a heavy weight on her shoulders. To try to keep TPUSA alive. I don't even know if TPUSA is going to live. I mean, Charlie Kirk was TPUSA. I don't think that it is ever going to be what it was under Charlie Kirk. And people like Candace Owens coming out and disparaging the foundation as complicit in his murder. That's not going to help. Okay, so she's grieving in a much different way than all of us would expect, because we live much different lives than an Erica Kirk does. She actually got some questions that involved what Kirk would say to those who justify his death or say that his death was warranted because of his rhetoric. Let's take a listen. Here we go.
Said more in 31 years than most people will say in a lifetime. Yes. And I want to read a few that have captured the most attention, especially on the political left, okay?
Yeah.
Some gun deaths were, quote, unfortunately worth it to preserve the Second Amendment, he said. Acknowledging that he wishes he didn't feel this way, he said, I'm sorry, if I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified. He said the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was a mistake. Now, I realize that all of those quotes come from longer conversations that he had on his show.
Correct.
But he did say those things. Mm-hmm. And Charlie is being memorialized by many people as a person who promoted civil discourse, as a person who said, come to the front of the line, let's have a civil conversation. How do you square that with the statements I just read?
I would love for everyone to be able to watch the full and entire clip of what he said. Charlie didn't care what skin color you were. He didn't care what religion you were. He loved excellence. He loved knowing that people, his favorite word was earn. He loved knowing that people worked hard to earn what they got. He worked so hard to build Turning Point USA. The first statement you meant about guns and shooting, I have no idea the context of that, and I have no idea that whole, there's a lot more there than just that one little sentence. My husband is not to be deteriorated to two sentences. He's not. He is a thought leader, and he was brilliant of a man. So that's fine if you want to take words out of his mouth or out of context without the whole thing in perspective. But that's the problem.
Okay. So, she goes on, she says, and she broke down in tears, and she says, you want to watch high-res video of my husband being murdered, and you're going to laugh? You're going to say he deserved it? There's something very sick about that, and I pray for your soul, and I pray God saves you. So I know the context of what she's talking about. I remember both those shows, the guy with the who's black on the airplane. I do the same thing. If I see somebody who's black and flying my airplane, or a woman flying my airplane, I think to myself, oh man, is that a DEI hire? This was something that the Biden administration was all about, was DEI hires. And it wasn't on your merit, it was on your skin color, your race, and that is racist. But they take that out of context, like, oh, you don't like black people flying planes, and the left thrives on pulling these takes out of context for ratings. And I mean, I'm just gonna say it, like, the Biden administration, you got like an ESG score if you hired more black people than your counterpart, or if you did climate woke BS. So, for example, Archer Daniels Midland, this is a food processor. They got an ESG score and tax breaks for creating food that was like Beyond Burger or whatever, like Impossible Meat, or creating soy-based products because it was climate friendly. So it goes beyond race. It was like anything woke, we will reward you in the form of a tax credit. And I don't know about you, but I don't trust companies who do that. Obviously, Beyond Burger, like, you can go into the stores and look at all these soy products, like, lining the shelves. Nobody eats that crap. So you're not being an actual business and looking at supply and demand and supplying the demand. You are artificially getting rich off of tax incentives that the Biden administration, deems that you can have if you meet a certain criteria or meet a certain DEI or climate initiative that he wants. Okay, so that was what was going on in the Biden administration. That's the full context there. And he says, yeah, if I look at my black pilot under the Biden administration through these DEI initiatives, I'm going to wonder if he's qualified. Yeah. The gun thing, it's like, yes, even out of context, gun deaths, there's going to be some, inevitably, because we have guns and guns are our things. But we would have that even if we outlawed guns. It's not going to stop manufacturers or people getting it off the black market. Like, we see that in Chicago, and Charlie Kirk from Illinois probably knew that better than anybody. Like, gun laws don't stop people from committing violent crimes with guns. People kill people, guns don't kill people, right? That's the full context. So Erica Kirk, she, said that she prays for the people who laughed. You're a sick human being if you think that he deserved this because of what he said. Even out of context, I mean, nobody deserves to be assassinated like that because of what they say. Like, you could have said, and I don't agree with it, like, Hitler is the best thing since sliced bread. I don't even think that somebody who says something like that should have a bullet lodged into their neck in high resolution. Sorry, words are words. I don't agree with it, but yeah, it doesn't mean you should die, right? So Weiss brought forth a recent poll by the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression and College Pulse that 91% of undergraduates believes words are violence. Now, words to have meaning and they're powerful, but they're not violence. Okay, Weiss wanted to know, what would you say to those students who claim that Charlie Kirk incited violence? And I think this is the clip. Here we go.
The last person that Charlie ever spoke to was a Utah Valley student named Hunter Kozak. He was asking Charlie a question that day when he was shot, and he's here tonight, and he wants to ask you a question.
Hi there. Erica, I want to tell you how much I appreciate your calls for peace and unity. And I'm likewise horrified by the people in my so-called camp who were cheering about Charlie's murder. I believe that they stoke the flames of violence. But even worse is when powerful, influential people on either side of the aisle stoke the flames. When they do it, the flames can become an inferno. And this leads me to Donald Trump, the most powerful and influential person on earth, who has more responsibility than anyone else to put the flames out. Just last month, President Trump called on 6 Democratic lawmakers to be tried for sedition, which he clarified was punishable by death. He then reposted a simple message: hang them. I think that you've been making strides to bring peace to our country, and that Turning Point has been asking Democrats to decry the individuals who cheer for violence. I have and will continue to decry them. But any good faith effort to stop political violence must hold both parties to the same standard and expectation. So in that spirit, will you condemn the violent rhetoric of Donald Trump, the most powerful and influential person on earth?
I appreciate your question. You know my heart. Why would I ever say, yes, go murder people? This is so much deeper than just one. I understand your sentiment. I do. But this is also so much deeper than just one person. This starts at the home, okay? This starts with family. This starts with a seed that grows and grows. You can choose to have evil in your heart, or you can choose to have light. What you consume and what you absorb from the outside world will manifest itself. No, I will never agree with political violence. My husband is a victim of it. I'm a victim of it. But what I'm trying to say here is that we can blame everyone else. We have to look in the mirror. When you become a father, when you become a mother, how are you raising your kids? Are you taking responsibility, or are you giving them a device and saying, go down that rabbit hole? I'm trying to go to Pilates class. You can just sit in the corner and look at your iPad or look at your phone and go down that rabbit hole and see what you can learn from that instead of being a parent. So my call to action from that is, parents, step up. Do you want your kid to be a thought leader or an assassin? That's where we're at.
Do you think our political leaders have a responsibility to turn the temperature down right now?
Well, I think everyone has a responsibility to do that, and I'm doing my part. I'm not in control of other people.
Okay, so Erica's no Charlie Kirk, right? I mean, the seditious 6, they were actually practicing true communist rhetoric. So sedition is a crime. Treason is a crime. Donald Trump, and she didn't, I don't think Erica Kirk honestly knew, this element that he was talking about. And I don't think that she actually answered the question there. I mean, she's a grieving widow. We shouldn't expect her. I don't understand why she even agreed to this town hall. I think, like I said, she's grieving and she's in denial, and that she wants to carry on Charlie Kirk's legacy. And she thinks, in her head that she's going to be able to do that. And that's the way of her processing grief. But here, we know the seditious 6, there is a clear military code. This is law. When you tell people to ignore the chain of command, and when you urge people to defy orders, military orders that are lawful, even illegal orders, when you encourage them to defy illegal orders, there's punishments for that. Even illegal orders you're supposed to follow to an extent in the military. If otherwise, on their face, they look legal, and you have no information that they are illegal, you're supposed to follow those. What they actually carried out was seditious behavior. Now, we weren't at a time of war. This is where Donald Trump kind of messed up. Being in a time of war, that calls for, hanging, public execution. If I was Erica Kirk, I would have asked him, so do you know what the crime sedition? Do you know what the crime of treason is? This is not political violence, what you're referring to here. This is a call of punishment for a crime. And, was it inflammatory? Sure, you can say that. We weren't at a time of war. Outside of a time of war, if you break the chain of command, or if you urge people to break the chain of command or not listen to their military superior, then you serve life in prison if we're outside of a time of war. This is the military code, demands. So I would have, pushed back, and I would have said, that's not political violence. He's, expressing what he thinks should happen to people he believed committed a crime, the punishment for said crime. But I think she did a decent job at saying we have to have questions. He didn't attack people. He attacked ideas. My husband did something very simple. He talked to people. He didn't go after them because they were saying XYZ. He didn't say go after them. He gave these people a microphone. He gave them a moment to them for them to speak back. He gave them a microphone, and what did they do? They gave him a bullet in the neck. That's what she says, and she said that's totally different. It's totally different than what Donald Trump said on Truth Social or wherever he tweeted that out. Hang them, which I don't even know. I didn't even see that, but he did call for their execution. Why? Because the punishment fits the crime, right? And that's not Donald Trump saying it. That's the military code. Anyway, so there was a lot there with this interview. There was also a powerful moment between Erica Kirk and Robert Milgram. So Robert Milgram, he was the father of Sarah Milgram. Sarah Milgram, she was, I believe, killed, outside of this museum, Jewish museum in Washington, D.C. Robert Milgram discussed the rise of anti-Semitism on the left, but wanted to know where TVUSA stood as far as anti-Semitism on the right and whether Kirk would condemn it, Erica Kirk. And I think this is actually a different... so let me finish this thought. Kirk said that, I'm sorry for the loss of your daughter. You and I are part of a very small club, very painful. We've had family taken away from us. And she said, Charlie always would say very clearly, Jew hatred is brain rot. We've been to Israel twice together. We were able to walk where our Savior walked and see the Bible come to life. How could you hate that place? How could you? Israel hatred, Jewish hatred, it just comes from a place of ignorance. Now, you can criticize the Israeli government, which I do all the time. It's corrupt, and they've got their problems just like we do with the far left and this uprising against Bibi Netanyahu. But Bibi Netanyahu's response to this uprising in his country is not great. Okay, he is doubling down on power control. If the people don't like you, then the people don't like you. Okay, get over it and get out of there, right, Bibi? There was intelligence that this Hamas attack would happen, and I don't know if the Israeli government ignored it or if they didn't take it seriously, but they've got their problems, the Israeli government, much like our U.S. government, and you can criticize that. Now, I wish Erica Kirk would have gone into that a little bit, but she said, it comes from a place of brain rot, and really it's people who don't read the word, the Bible. Old covenant, new covenant, we've talked about that. The new covenant does not replace the old covenant. The old covenant, the new covenant is a fulfillment of the old covenant. So Milgram followed up that question with a specific question: what did they plan to do to stop the hate? Kirk was quick to respond. She goes, have conversations. We have Shabbat dinner happening at AmFest. We have individuals in our chapters who are Jewish. The only way to combat evil, just as Charlie did with dialogue. Charlie said that he tries to convert, I think it was Dennis Prager, every single day. I think that we have to be careful, and this is where the right really gets this anti-Semitism going. There are people who would say, like, oh yeah, follow the law and, totally disregard Jesus the man and this new covenant. And we're not Jews, right? We're Christians, and we're called to, follow Jesus and be like Jesus. Okay. And, I think that there's people on the right that think that there's this faction within Christianity where they are too sympathetic with the Jewish people, and the Jewish people put Jesus on the cross, right? And they don't like that, and that they hold this hatred and this bitterness in their hearts because the Jewish people put, come on, the Pharisees, they put Jesus on the cross, and they're like, why aren't you mad about that? It's just brain rot. That's what it is. And Charlie said that, it's just brain rot, and you are letting your bitterness and your hatred get the best of you. And much like, the Muslims, they get the bitterness and the hatred, get the best of them, and they hate the Jews because, they were promised this old covenant that the descendants of Abraham, through the lineage of Israel, Jacob, he was renamed Israel, that they would reap the benefits from the promised land. The other side, Hagar and Abraham's child Ishmael, they're going to reap the other benefits of many nations. You just don't get the promised land, and they're bitter that they got the shaft end of the deal, or they think that they got the shaft end of the deal. Or they were shafted. So, it's just brain rot on the right and on the left. So she said, including people from the Jewish community, but she said having a dialogue and not being afraid to do so. I like that. Having a dialogue with your Jewish friends. There's nothing more cool than they call them Messianic Jews, people who convert to Christianity and are Jewish. That is the coolest thing, because truly they are a fulfillment of that old covenant, and like they've accepted the new covenant and Jesus, and they are complete, so there was Hunter Kozak. He had a line of questioning. We played that, his little spiel there. She was asked about the conspiracy theories surrounding Charlie Kirk's assassination. Erica Kirk was, and she said, all I have to say is stop. People have come and, fired shots at verbal shots at Erica Kirk for that it was weird that she said that. And like, no, I don't think that was weird. Just stop. Like I said, I think that she's at a point of probably denial at this stage. She thinks that she can carry out, the day-to-day of TPUSA, and somehow Charlie Kirk will live on through that day-to-day and through the tasks of TPUSA and the projects of TPUSA. And, the conspiracy theories are getting in the way of that. So truly, I do think that Erica just wants it to stop because it's getting in the way of her carrying out his legacy. There was also a Manhattan Institute journalist and producer, Isabel Redjai. She asked about relationships and dating and whether you should choose a career as a woman over motherhood. Take a listen. Here's Erica Kirk's response.
Suggesting, right? Suggesting that women should get married young, that they should have children young, that they should prioritize family over their careers. And at the same time, you are now doing both. You now have 2 young children, I think both under the age of 3. And you're the CEO and chairwoman of Turning Point. Square that for us. Right. Some people look at you and say, she's trying to make it a binary choice. You can be the trad wife or the girl boss, but look at her. She's having both. Well, what do you say to them?
Right. Well, I didn't ask for this. Obviously it's a blessing that I view it as a blessing. It's a duty to my husband. But I was very happy being a stay-at-home mom. There's nothing wrong with being a mother. There's actually more beautiful and emotional and powerful job title, if you will, being a mother. And for me, I experienced what it was like living in New York, living that boss babe culture. But when I met Charlie and we had our babies, I was in it. That was all hands on deck. I would take that world in a heartbeat. Always. But you know what? There was never any daylight between Charlie and I, and his mission was my mission. So stepping into this role is not so much a job title. This is not a 9-to-5 for me. This is something that I'm very passionate about because it's still a remaining breathing version of my husband, this Turning Point USA. So this organization is not just a company to me. And the staff and employees are not staff and employees, they're family. And so for me, it's a lot different and a lot deeper than a career. This is very personal. But yes, it is hard. But at the same day, it takes a village, and I have one heck of a village.
We have a woman here that has a question perfectly calibrated to this part of our conversation. I want to hand it over to Isabella Reggi.
Thank you. And Erica, you and your family are in my prayers.
Thank you.
I'm a 26-year-old Christian woman living in New York City. I would like to stay here long term, but I wonder whether it's sustainable. Do you believe there's a place for women like myself in modern cities who care about having a career, but also marrying a like-minded Christian conservative man?
Well, yeah. So it just depends on where you're looking. You know, if you're on the apps, I don't know if you're on the apps. I don't know if, I'm not going to ask you your personal journey. But what I will say is when I lived out here, I was here for 5 years. I never dated here because I saw vicariously through my roommate how terrible it was. Somehow getting drinks was the replacement of having coffee and breakfast. I personally would rather have coffee or brunch with someone than go. I don't drink. I find it unproductive, not because I'm holier than whatever. I just don't operate that way. But I always thought it was very strange how she would go to drinks with one guy and then go to dinner with another. So it goes twofold here. So if you're expecting to marry someone that I was blessed with, like a Charlie, you have to be the type of woman that will attract a Charlie. Are you going to church? Are you going to Bible study? Did you tell your pastor that you are ready for the Lord to bring into your life the man that you've been praying for? You yourself need to be prepared for that man, and only you will know how to do that. Does that mean staying out and going out with the girls? I'm not saying you sit on your couch and all of a sudden he's going to knock on your door and be like, honey, let's rendezvous. Like, that's not how it happens. It's not. Granted, my situation was a little different. I wouldn't do it.
You went to a job interview.
Literally. So this is how good the Lord is. He knew that because I was not dating in New York City, he knew that in order for me to know that that was my man, he had to blanket Charlie as a job interview. Because if that went in, no joke, if he came to me and said, hey, let's go on a date to Bill's Burgers, I'd be like, I am so sorry. Thank you, but no, we're not doing this. That was my mindset. I was not in that headspace. I just wasn't. But God will work in incredible ways when you surrender the pen for him to write your love story. And when you know that, look, if I remain in the jet stream of God's will, he will provide for me in ways I cannot even imagine. And that is my prayer for you. My prayer for you is to remain open and to remain prayerful and to let people around you know, old school style, I'm ready and I'm looking to get married and having a family. You can always have your career. Being able to have a family truly is a very limited, short window.
Okay. So that was Erica Kirk talking about motherhood and career. And she offered some advice. Be the woman that would attract a Charlie. Be the woman that would attract a Christian. You have to, understand that having a family is a short window, biological window. There was a very pivotal end to the discussion when Weiss was asked asked Erica Kirk whether, there was a difference between forgiveness of her husband's murder and demanding justice. And Erica Kirk, she said something that really stuck out to me. She said, He is sovereign, but he's also just. So let the Lord handle that. She talked about God being a God of love and justice, mercy and justice. So she, being a Protestant Christian, understands that we serve Yahweh, the great I am. Okay. And he's an interpersonal God. So we have a relationship with him that is not the same as Allah, the God, where you don't have an interpersonal relationship with him. And this God is a God of just mercy. Okay. Just like only mercy. Allah is, our God is different. He's of love and justice. So she says, let the Lord handle that. So that really stuck out to me in the interview as well. She did interview town hall. She did a great job. I'm going to get to some of your comments. Yeah, we talked about this. The new covenant would have replaced the old, but the Jews did not believe the work of the cross, grace. Replacement theory or theology is not the new covenant replacing the old. Rather, it's saying that Jews or that God is finished with the Jews and replaced them, and that's just not true. The new covenant would have replaced the old, but the Jews did not believe the work of the cross, grace. Yeah, spot on. There's a belief out there in Christianity, and this is where the far right comes in, that the Jews are who put Jesus Christ up there. They still haven't accepted Christ, and you should be bitter about that and hateful. And that is where we start to see anti-Semitism on the right. Erica Kirk was asked about that, and she said, we have to continue to have dialogue. And I think Charlie Kirk said something like, I try to convert Dennis every single day, and have these discussions, and a lot of the Jewish people, if we were just to point out that the festivals are kind of in alignment with Jesus fulfilling those festivals almost. So, for example, the Festival of Unleavened Bread, and I'm going to screw this up, but my pastor taught me, Pastor Timothy James Farrell at the Tabernacle. I'm not a pastor, but the Festival of Unleavened Bread, there's multiple festivals here. The Festival of Unleavened Bread, the Passover, right? This was all kind of like a prophecy to Jesus. And unleavened bread, like in Jews' custom, you take the leaven out, it doesn't rise. The Festival of Unleavened Bread, he like rises. Jesus Christ rises from the dead. Passover, the sacrificing of a lamb. This was something that would happen in the Old Testament for protection or whatever. The Lamb of God was sacrificed for us. That's Jesus Christ. And it all kind of lines up in the same timeline, in the New Testament. And he's kind of a fulfillment of these festivals. The Festival of Trumpets, that is what is said to be the second coming of Jesus Christ. So if you were to just share that with, your Jewish brethren, I think a lot of them would convert, but, they, shut it out, much like, the Muslim people shut out anything about Jesus because they're mad at God because of the promises he gave to the descendants of Abraham through his son. Jacob later turned to Israel. So yeah, the descendants, they don't like that they didn't get the promised land, so they just cut off anything about Jesus because they're mad at God because he's an incarnate. He is God, Jesus, and they're mad at him. They don't want to accept him. So yeah, I mean, thanks for the comments. She was forced into this situation. She had to leave the traditional lifestyle. So the left, they're trying to twist it. They're like, oh, I thought you were, a boss babe, but now you're a CEO of a company. So the left doesn't understand scripture. Like I said, in the beginning of the show, I actually talked about this. It was a custom, Jewish custom in the Old Testament where the brother would actually marry. I know this is weird. The brother would actually marry the widow. So the brother of the husband would actually marry the widow, and any sons that she bore with the brother would actually inherit and be the heir of the late husband. Okay, so why do I bring this up? There's themes in examples in the Bible about the widow. The widow, once she's widowed, she is no longer like trad wife, what you would think of trad wife. And especially in Erica's case, she has a entire like system of people around her. Like the president is in her corner, okay, and these people are wealthy. She doesn't have to think about not that she doesn't, but she doesn't have to worry about the protecting of herself and her children anymore. Okay, so here's God's protection in Psalm 146, verse 9. The Lord watches over the foreigners, he upholds the widow and the fatherless, but the way of the wicked he brings to ruin. Okay, the father of the fatherless, the protector of the widows is God in his holy habitation. So in our faith, orphans and widows, they don't have to distress anymore. So in a traditional relationship, the wife does have to distress. The mother does have to kind of distress over her young and take care of her young. Not that she doesn't have to anymore once she's widowed, but it's kind of already taken care of. Her purpose now at this point, Erica, she believes, is to further the legacy of Charlie Kirk. Is she in some form of denial where she thinks that she can carry on this legacy? And but her only goal right now, or her only mission right now, is to further the legacy of her husband and to grieve. Okay, so the protection of her children and the protection of even herself is already taken care of. Her basic necessities and life is just taken care of. So when you don't have that to worry about, okay, of course she's going to further the legacy of her husband and try to enrich her children's life through the inheritance that Charlie left those children. So yeah, they don't understand the left. Like, she was forced into the situation, and it's her husband was taken from her, but now she's under a different calling. Okay, she's no longer a mother, she's a widow. And the widows have a divine protection, and they are already taken care of. So she doesn't have to take care of her children anymore, because that is on the brother. Not Charlie Kirk had a brother, but like the brothers in Christ, right? Your JD Vances, your Donald Trumps, these men of influence who are in her inner circle. And Charlie probably meticulously and deliberately chose men that would be his friends and would care for the widow. If that were to have ever happened, I'm sure Charlie thought about that as a man. All men do. Like, who's going to take care of my wife when I'm gone? Okay, if I am tragically taken from this world, or for whatever, we're not promised every single day. Every Christian knows that. So this is something that goes through a man's head. Who's going to take care of my wife and children when I'm gone? And she doesn't even have to worry about taking care of the children anymore, because there is a divine protection over her now that she's a widow. If that makes sense. Not that she doesn't care for her children, doesn't love her children, but this is a burden that is no longer on her. Not that children are a burden and taking care of them. I know, I'm talking too much, but this is no longer a calling or a mission that is on her life. She is a widow. And there's scripture that talks about this, and the left tries to, get her in a gotcha. You're not a trad wife anymore. Well, no, of course she's not a trad wife anymore. She's not a wife at all. She's a widow. So yeah, smash that like button, share this out with your friends, subscribe to the channel. That's going to do it for us. I went over a little bit today, but needed to be done. I had a lot to cover this morning, so subscribe to the channel. So do appreciate 1,000 subscribers. Always support the program by visiting Patriot Pump Energy. Use the promo code conservative cat at checkout, and you get a discount of like $10. This is really good stuff. It's a premium pre-workout. You guys have a blessed day. Bye-bye. Love you so much.